that the hadith of Allah, the hadith of Allah prescribing mercy upon Himself, right? That Allah has prescribed mercy upon Himself. So He chooses not to punish those people. Even if He had punished those people, He still would not be oppressive to them. Right, now this hadith, we'll quickly finish upon just an explanation of this hadith, because this hadith can be misunderstood, that if Allah was to punish the inhabitants of the heavens and the earth, He would punish them, but He would not be unjust to them. Right, so how do we understand this hadith in the right way? Basically what it means is that if we look at all of the creatures of Allah, we see that everything that happens is through the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. Right, when we see that all life, all movement, everything that's taken place is from the bounties and the favors of Allah Azza wa Jal. So for example, when they eat, they are eating through the favor of Allah. When they breathe, the breathing is a favor from Allah. When they learn, learning is a favor from Allah. When they take a step, when they move a step forward, they are moving a step forward due to the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. When they look, when they see, when they hear, when they rejoice, when they're happy, when they speak, all of these are all from the favors and the bounties of Allah Azza wa Jal. Now, these favors and bounties cannot be counted by anybody, meaning that a single servant of Allah Azza wa Jal, he cannot count all of the bounties of Allah Azza wa Jal. And so if he can't count them, then it follows that he's unable to be grateful for all of them. Right? So if all of the bounties of Allah are on one side, many of which he does not even know and cannot even appreciate or cannot even acknowledge, and then on the other side, his shukr, his gratefulness, then we find that there's a huge difference between the favors of Allah Azza wa Jal given to him and the extent to which he is grateful to Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? So for that reason, if Allah Azza wa Jal was to punish everybody from the angle that they haven't shown the shukr, the gratefulness that they are supposed to show, right? This would mean that Allah has not been unjust in punishing them, right? Allah has not been unjust in punishing them. Why? Because the servants have not shown the gratefulness that they ought to show for all of the favors and the bounties of Allah Azza wa Jal, right? But it is purely from His mercy. It is purely from His mercy. It is purely from His mercy to His servants. And an example of here, this as well, from the Prophet ﷺ, and likewise from Abu Bakr, when the Prophet ﷺ used to stand in prayer, and his feet would become swollen, and Aisha would ask him, why are you, you are the messenger of Allah ﷺ, why are you going through all of this? And he said, should I not be a grateful servant? Should I not be a grateful servant? And this indicates that what Allah is deserving of worship and gratefulness and thankfulness cannot be brought by the servant. We cannot bring it. It's not possible. Because the favors and bounties of Allah are so numerous that we can't worship Allah enough and thank Him enough to make up for all of those favors and bounties. And even all of our shortcomings, the fact that we sin and the fact that we disobey Allah, and the fact that Allah then gives us the ability to repent, that in itself is another favor that for which we have to show another favor. Right? So basically it means it's something that's endless. We can't really count all of the favors and bounties of Allah. We can never reach all of the bounties and favors of Allah because they are constantly recurring all the time, and we can't keep pursuing them because after one favor is another favor, is another favor, is another favor. Right? So that's why we see in this hadith, the Prophet said, should I not be a grateful servant? And likewise Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he said, Allah used to make a supplication, Allahumma inni dhulamtu nafsi dhulman kathiran wa la yaghfiru dhunuba illa ant faghfir li maghfiratan min indik. Oh Allah, I have indeed wronged myself with a great wrongdoing, a great oppression, and no one forgives sins except for you. So forgive me with forgiveness from yourself. Now you might ask, what is this great dhulm that Abu Bakr did? what is this great dhulm that Abu Bakr did? Which great sins did he commit? We know he didn't commit great sins. And, did he wrong any of the servants of Allah? Did he commit any... We know he didn't do this. But why is he referring to this dhulm, that I have wronged myself with a great amount of dhulm? It is because of shortcomings, falling short in shukr, in the... he feels that he felt short in being grateful for the bounties and favors of Allah. That's why he sees from himself a great amount of dhulm. But we know that Abu Bakr was the most righteous man on this earth after all of this ummah, after the Prophet ﷺ, and after all of the prophets and messengers. And we know that, from what we know from him, he was the greatest in following the messenger, in loving the messenger. And, but he himself, he saw from himself that he is falling short in being grateful for the favors and bounties of Allah Azza wa Jal. And he saw that as dhulm. He saw that as dhulm, as oppression. Right, so when we understand this point, then we go back to that hadith, which is, as we said, related by Abu Dawood, that if Allah was to punish all of the inhabitants of the heavens and the earth, He would punish them without being unjust to them. Right, meaning that if Allah was to punish everybody, He would not be unjust in doing so. Why? Because the servants have not brought the shukr, the gratitude that would be required from them, because the bounties and favors of Allah are so many that they haven't brought the amount of shukr to compensate for that. So Allah still would not be unjust if He was to punish them. But we know that Allah does not punish His servants. He's prescribed upon Himself mercy and rahmah, and so on and so forth. So that's what the Shaykh mentions about that particular hadith, because that hadith has been used by the people of innovation and misinterpreted in the wrong way, like the Ash'aris and other than them. And so that's how we should understand that hadith. So this now brings us to the final issue. What is the definition of oppression with Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah? Then it is as follows. It is to put things in other than their proper places. Dhulm is to put something in other than its proper place, which, where they ought to be put. To put things in other than the places where they ought to be put. Which follow on from wisdom, right? So if we look at what adl means, it's the opposite of adl. Adl, justice, means to put something in its proper place in accordance with the wisdom of Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? This is adl as it relates to Allah Azza wa Jal. To put something in its proper place, to put something in its correct place, in its proper place, following the wisdom of Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? And so oppression, dhulm, is to put something in other than its proper place, in which it would be following the wisdom of Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? Is that clear? This is the correct understanding of dhulm. It is when someone puts something in other than its proper place, right? Outside of what wisdom would require it to be. So Ahlul Sunnah, what they say, that this is the meaning of dhulm, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never ever commits any dhulm, because He always puts everything in its proper place, which follows on from His wisdom. Now let's give some examples. Let's say this person called Abdullah, he becomes misguided. He's misguided by Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? Now why was this person misguided? Well, this person didn't desire guidance. In his heart there wasn't a desire for guidance. He didn't cling hold and fast and want to be guided. So Allah Azza wa Jal made him misguided through whatever means. Maybe through shubuhat that came to him, maybe through calamities that came to him, and so he left the guidance or whatever. right? So this person now become misguided. Allah has not been unjust to this person, but Allah has put things in their proper places in accordance with His wisdom, right? So all of the actions of Allah Azza wa Jal, there is no injustice in them at all, because every single action of Allah is in its proper place, and it is in accordance with the wisdom of Allah Azza wa Jal, right? When we understand this to be the meaning of dhulm, when we understand this to be the meaning of dhulm, of oppression, then we can see clearly that in the actions of Allah Azza wa Jal, we can understand all of the actions of Allah Azza wa Jal in a very simple, clear way. That Allah puts things in their proper places, and those things, they follow the wisdom of Allah Azza wa Jal. And that's it. There's no such thing as making certain actions impossible upon Allah. There's no such things as dhulm doesn't apply to Allah because He's not commanded or prohibited, like what the Ash'aris and what the Mu'tazila, like their two sayings. Right? We have a clear, simple understanding of what dhulm is and how Allah is free from dhulm. Right? So Allah does not wrong anybody at all. And so, as I said, that depending on how you define dhulm, how you understand dhulm, this will lead you to either the right or the wrong understanding of certain issues in al-qada wal-qadar. And so this is what we understand from the Quran and the Sunnah, that al-dhulm is the opposite of al-adal, justice. Justice is to put everything, or in fact, it's similar to wisdom as well. Al-hikmah, wisdom is to put things in their proper places. And al-adal, likewise, is to put something in its proper place. Its opposite is dhulm, to put something in other than their proper places, to put something out of its proper place. And so with that, it answers a lot of the questions to do with al-qada wal-qadar. And it opposes what some of the sects of innovation like the Ash'aris and the Mu'tazila, what they say. And so this really brings us to an end of our discussion of al-qada wal-qadar. And we move next to other miscellaneous issues that At-Tahawi mentions, that will start inshallah ta'ala in the next lesson. So if there are any questions on anything that we've discussed today, basically we've gone through the 4 levels of al-qadar. We've discussed the difference between the terms al-qada and al-qadar. We understand that difference. Now we looked at the issue of dhulm, what is dhulm, and how dhulm is understood or misunderstood by some of the groups like the Ash'aris and the Mu'tazila. 2 wrong definitions that they bring, and the correct definition from Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, and how that resolves and solves many of the shubuhat or misconceptions or doubts in relation to the topic of al-qadar itself. And so these are the 3 main issues that we discussed in today's lesson. That brings us to an end to the topic of al-qadar in general, and we'll start with a fresh topic inshallah ta'ala in the next lesson.